Okay, so let's talk about cancer. What do you think is the main cause? Most of us, right, we immediately think genetics. It's just this cruel lottery written in our DNA. But what if I told you the research paints a completely different picture? And it all kicks off with one pretty surprising number.
So here it is, 80 to 90%. Now, what do you think that number represents when we're talking about cancer? It's not a survival rate. It's not the odds you'll get it. No, it's something way more fundamental. And honestly, it changes everything.
And there's your answer. The research shows that a staggering 80 to 90% of all human cancers are caused by environmental factors. I mean, think about that. That completely flips the script, doesn't it? It means cancer isn't just, bad luck with your genes. It's often a direct result of the world we're in and the choices we make. So let's dig in and figure out what these environmental factors actually are.
All right, so first up, let's look at the things that are most directly in our control, right? Our personal choices and, well, their consequences.
Okay, when it comes to this story, there is no bigger player than tobacco. The source material is crystal clear on this. Whether it's smoking, chewing, you name it, tobacco is the single biggest environmental cause of cancer. That's a huge statement, so let's see just how wide that impact really goes.
Just look at this list. I mean, it is staggering. We all know about lung cancer, of course, but tobacco's reach goes so much further. It affects the entire body, from your mouth and throat all the way down to your bladder, your pancreas, and even your kidneys. It's systemic.
All right, next up, alcohol. Now, it's definitely not on the same scale as tobacco, but it's still pointed out as a pretty significant contributor. We're talking especially about cancers of the esophagus and the liver. The source actually estimates it's a factor in about 3% of all cancer deaths. And just to put that 3% number in perspective, let's bring tobacco back into the picture for a second. The source estimates that cigarettes are responsible for over 1 million premature deaths every single year. So yeah, when you see those numbers side by side, the difference in scale is just massive. And that's exactly why tobacco gets called out as the major cause. But of course, it's not just about what we smoke or drink, right? It's also about what we eat. The research draws some really interesting lines between specific dietary habits and certain cancers. For example, diets with a lot of smoked fish are linked to stomach cancer. High beef consumption? That's linked to bowel cancer. It's pretty clear our food choices are a big part of our long-term risk profile.
Okay, but environment is a really big word. It's not just about our personal habits. It's also about the world around us, the places we work, and yeah, even the infections we might pick up along the way.
Think about it. Our jobs can actually be a source of risk. The source material says that between 1% and 5% of all human cancers come from occupational exposures. I mean, these are risks people are facing just by clocking in for work every day.
And we're not talking about some obscure sci-fi chemicals here. We're talking about stuff like asbestos, which used to be everywhere in construction, benzene, which you find in industrial solvents, or heavy metals like arsenic and cadmium. These are very real, tangible risks that exist in a lot of industrial jobs.
Okay, now for something that's really fascinating, and I think a lot of people don't think about this: viruses. Yeah, some viruses are directly causally linked to cancer. A perfect example is hepatitis B and C. They can lead to a specific type of liver cancer, hepatocellular carcinoma.
And it's a similar story with HIV. An HIV infection dramatically boosts the risk for certain cancers. You might have heard of Kaposi sarcoma. It was actually one of the very first recognized signs of the AIDS epidemic. And non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is another well-known complication.
And then there's maybe the most famous example of all: HPV, the human papillomavirus. The source calls it a chief suspect in cervical cancer. And this link, this discovery, is what led to huge breakthroughs in preventing it, like the HPV vaccine.
And get this, it's not even just viruses. Even parasitic infections can get in on the act. Take schistosyosis, for instance. It's a disease caused by these parasitic flatworms, and in some parts of the world, it's directly linked to a higher risk of bladder cancer. Wild, right?
Okay, so after all of that, all this evidence pointing to environmental causes, you have to be asking, where do our genes fit into all of this? It's the big question we started with, right? And the answer is, well, it's a little more complicated than you might think. It's really less about destiny and a lot more about susceptibility.
This slide really lays it all out, doesn't it? The scale is just tilted so heavily toward environmental factors. So that genetics piece, it's described as being less conspicuous. It's not the main actor, it's playing a supporting role, mainly in how it interacts with everything else in our environment.
And that brings us to this really crucial idea, hereditary susceptibility. Here's what it means in plain English. Your genes might not give you cancer directly, but they might make you more vulnerable to the things that can, like the nasty stuff in cigarette smoke or those industrial chemicals we talked about. It's like having a less sturdy shield.
Yeah, and this quote from the source just nails it. It says there's a complex interrelationship. It's not genetics or environment, it's a dance between the two. It's about the genetic hand you're dealt and how you play that hand in the world you live in.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, right? From tobacco and diet to viruses and what we're exposed to at work. So let's zoom out. What's the big picture takeaway from all this?
The main point is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Genetics play a role, for sure. We can't ignore them. But the evidence is just overwhelming that our environment, and that includes our personal choices, our exposures, all of it, is the dominant #1 force driving the development of most cancers, period. And that leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. If 80 to 90% of cancers are tied to our environment, well, that changes the whole conversation. It shifts it away from just fate and bad luck and toward factors that we can often understand, and this is the key, that we can often change. The focus moves from what's hardwired in our DNA to the world we build around us and the lives we choose to lead. So the real question becomes, what's our role in shaping that environment for the better?